So now we are then moving to the roundtable. So I was just apologizing for the delay, which then was due to the presentation of the hands-ons of the VPH summer school before. That took a little bit longer than foreseen. And but now we'll start with a further delay. So with the roundtable. So I will introduce. I will make a short introduction. So I would like to know if you can raise your hand. I think I love Zoom. Yes, if you can raise your hand, I would like to know who is absolutely not in the field of medicine or engineering.
No.
Okay. So we have then a few people in that case. So the presentation I will make might sound a bit basic then for the specialists of the in silico technologies in medicine, but I have made it very generic on purpose. So this roundtable is co-organized by the QUAES Foundation and the University Pompeu Fabra through the chair that we have together and the European project, This for All. So this graph, I would start with this graph that represents actually the loss of life quality due to premature mortality and diseases in general. So we can see that if we look at the curve that is normalized by age, so we can see that along the years from the 90s then to 2019, we have actually gained quality of life because so the loss of quality of life so has decreased. That's a good news. Now, if we look within this the percentage of what we call non-communicable disease in the loss of quality of life, the figure is a bit different. What we call non-communicable disease are all these diseases that are not infectious, that are not due to bacteria, not due to viruses, that don't pass so from one person to another. So we have heart disease, we have respiratory disease that are not pneumonia, rather asthma, emphysema. We have musculoskeletal disorders. There are a lot of diseases. So if we look at the percentage of the relative importance of these diseases in the loss of quality of life from the 90s to 2019, so we see that actually there is an increase, a relative increase of the percentage of these diseases. It means that though the quality of life is improving worldwide, we can see that worldwide, actually, this non-communicable disease represents a relatively higher burden. So what is happening? If we take the reports from the World Health Organization and we take the top 10 of diseases in terms of loss of quality of life, and we, in this list, we only highlight these non-communicable diseases. So first, we can see that from the 90s to 2019, there is an increase of number of non-communicable diseases within this top 10 list. And second, we can see that we have actually an increase of all these disorders that are linked to highly multifactorial regulation of the cells. The cells of the organs that are being damaged by these diseases. Here I have taken an example as mechanical factor, as an additional factor that can influence the cell and the course of the diseases. So this multifactoriality actually then represents an increased complexity and the evolution of the disease. And the clinical reality is the following, is that the whole body has properties that its parts don't have on their own. And the property of the whole body depend on the interactions of its parts that are multifactorial and dynamic by nature. Okay, so the properties of the body, how the body behaves and evolves, depend on independent behaviors of many parts of the body, so the cells, the organs, and the molecules. And the variation of all these parts is actually relatively complex per se. So in the end, so you can view then the body as this swarm of birds, and the cells and the molecule would be then individual birds. So the disease appears as an emergent phenomenon. And it means that the curative process of a disease is also an emergent phenomenon. So of course we have centuries of medical experience that has helped to manage and to cure many diseases. But some very, very common diseases and highly prevalent diseases still don't have a cure. And we can name a large number of them. And here that's model and simulation can further help. So basically, what is a model? A model is a simplified mathematical formalization of the reality. If this is the reality, so the reality is complex by nature, there are a lot of factors. What the model will look to do is to make a counterpart of the reality, of a part of interest of the reality in function of controllable factors. And if we understand and we control these factors, then we can understand, predict, and control that part of reality that we are modeling mathematically. So it allows, of course, to better understand, predict, or control complex disorders. It allows to understand, predict, and control new disease outbreaks. And we've seen an example with COVID-19 in the last month and year. And it allows also proper contextualization of a health problem. And here we're talking about personalized medicine then. And it also allows better integrative management of health. And for example, Blanca Jordan this morning has given a very nice example of this integrative health management of health, so based on models. So an in silico model. An in silico model is basically a model, mathematical formulation that is implemented and solved. So the solution is called simulation with computer resources. These computer resources can be actually a smartphone. No, smartphone are more and more like portable computers. Can be a laptop, or it can be a supercomputer. And we have a lot of models. And when we apply then these models to medicine, then we're talking about in silico medicine. So we have data-driven models that can be statistical models. It can be models based on machine learning that will lead to artificial intelligence systems. And then we have then the physiology-based models that are based on equations that will represent intrinsic mechanisms of the human body. And of course, we will see in the future, and we're currently seeing a lot of combinations then of these two types of two large families of models. So I've taken this picture. This is a snapshot from a video from the Virtual Physiological Human Institute. I recommend you to have a look at this video if you scan this QR code, and about the concept of digital twin. The concept of digital twin is actually then the ultimate vision of in silico medicine. So it would consist of having a digital avatar of yourself that is based then on multiple coupled models, through which you can basically assess what you cannot measure in your body. You can predict what could happen if you take a specific drug, if you behave in a specific manner, if you leave your disease evolve alone during 20 years, or if you take preventive measures, etc. So the eventual vision of the digital twin is actually then to complement currently available medical tests, is to reduce unnecessary use of drugs, to allow shorter hospital stays and improve the recovery. And in the end, it aims to lead to a less risky, cheaper, and faster healthcare system. You know, achieving this is complex, is not straightforward. And in silico medicine, so has several pillars. And among these several pillars, so we can identify 6 important ones, which are first the medical doctors, then the science that will provide the basic concepts and the basic technologies to build the models. The patients are important stakeholders here. The healthcare system is a very important pillar. So the needs, the uptake, the industry, who are basically the product providers, service providers. So they are the enabler of new technologies to the society. And then everything needs to be very well regulated, because we're talking about high risk application of the technology. We're talking about the management of people's health. So finding actually the meeting points then between these different pillars from a technological training point of view, as objective of this European project, this goal that we're running among different European institutions. This is also the objective on a more transversal way of the QUAES Foundation here in Spain, who is one of the partners of this whole project, and sponsor then of this roundtable, which is called In Silico Medicine and New Medical Technologies for Society, Awareness, Expectation, and Effective Capacity. The objective of which is actually then to find the meeting point. So now I'm pleased to introduce Marta Pulido, who is a science journalist, and then will be chairing the rest of the roundtable. So Marta, I leave you the floor. I stop sharing and I leave you the floor.
Thank you, Thierry. Well, thank you very much for this kind introduction, Jerome, and many thanks for the opportunity to moderate this session. Well, welcome everyone. I hope you have enjoyed the summer school, which is coming to an end in the best way possible with this roundtable. Just a quick reminder about the program we have. We have a first part where we will hear from 4 speakers who will each give a 10-minute talk. Speakers, please stick to your time. I will look at you. And we will close this part with a short discussion of 5 minutes. In the second part, which will last for 25 minutes, 4 more experts will join us to further discuss about in silico medicine. So, and please remind that you can leave your questions at the chat at any moment. And well, without further ado, let's start with Professor Liesbet Geris from the University of Liège and KU Leuven in Belgium. And he's also the executive director of the Virtual Physiological Human Institute. So Liesbet, the floor is yours when you want.
You're on mute, Liesbet.
Can hear you, Liesbet. Your microphone is off.
Okay, so I'll start again. Sorry for the Friday afternoon. So what I wanted to talk about today is the interaction that Jerome mentioned with just one of the stakeholders that was mentioned, and that is in this case the regulators. So what I will not cover is what is already covered well during the summer school. So why to do in silico medicine, what we can do. And I refer you to this paper from a whole group of people that really explained in very detailed way what are all the different types of modeling you can do in biomedical applications. So what I want to cover, if I now can go back, what I want to cover is how academia can interact with the regulatory process, either going through it themselves, being involved in regulatory science, or using the results of regulatory science to then improve our own academic practice. So those are the 3 points that I want to briefly touch upon. And just to give a few in the first category, academics going through the regulatory hurdles, just a few examples to show you that, yes, in fact, academics are taking their models sometimes as far as the regulator and beyond. One example is the Mobilize D project, which involves a lot of academics across Europe, where they want to design digital mobility outcomes. So based on measurements that they take from people, from their gait and from certain habits, those are quantified and then are used as a performance indicator in regulatory drug trials. So this is like a marker that they want to officially have recognized by EMA. And they are now at the point where they had a support letter from EMA for their qualification advice. Another example is a company called Vascops, who is using modeling as an early screening of abdominal aortic aneurysms in patients. And what is so specific about this is that this was certified as a class 2 medical device, which in itself is not an exception anymore, but the regulator or the organization that did that certification was part of the University of Graz. So they're actually doing the certification, and that is also a way in which academics do regulatory science. So just to say, you can, as an academic, you don't necessarily need to stop and leave that regulatory process to industry. Now, how else can we be involved in regulatory science? And that is an interaction with regulators. And in interaction with regulators, I'd like to show you some examples of the things that we're doing with the VPH Institute and the Avicenna Alliance. And the background of that are a number of things that have come out over the last 5 years, like the ASME VMV40, which I hope somebody at least has mentioned during the summer school, like the Good Simulation Practice initiatives that I'll be talking about later. There was a recent workshop of EMA looking at or there is a joint strategy with EMA and HMA that mentions in silico modeling. So there's a number of things ongoing. So, and in that perspective, also the European Commission is stimulating organizations like EMA to use these digital technologies, such as computational modeling and simulation for clinical trials. And also, it's already in preclinical research mentioned explicitly in the law. So this is the background. Now, at some point when an industry or an academic or another organization comes with its model to a regulatory body, well, they need to be able to assess whether that evidence, that digital evidence that is being presented, whether that makes any sense. And in order to do so, they need to have guidelines, they need to have guidances. And this is something that a regulator cannot really do alone, but needs to do in collaboration with it's the possible sponsors, which are academics, which is industry. And in collaboration with EMA, we set up a number of meetings to try and discuss what would be the best steps that you have to go through in order to show credibility of your in silico evidence. And this was written down in 2 papers that came out over the last 2 years with, as you can, if you look at the affiliation of the different people, with participation from all the stakeholders. And what is so special there, or what is this pathway to regulatory impact? Well, very briefly, it starts with a good definition of your question of interest and your modeling approach description. You go to a context of use saying, what is the case where I want to use my models? And then you define how could I possibly validate this? And this goes from an assessment of the regulatory impact. What is the effect of my model on the decision that was taken in the regulatory agency? And a model risk assessment. So what is the effect of my model on the medical decision? And if my model is wrong, what is the effect for the patient? So all that together defines your risk for the in silico evidence. And then once you have defined that risk, you go towards credibility goals. So what do I want to show? And how do I show it? And then you have to show it that it's actually credible, and then link it back to the context of use. Now this has come out there. This was for drug development. Now there are other cases where you, for instance, have drug device interactions where you have, again, additional stakeholders where also the notified bodies have to come into place, where you have different types of modeling meet each other. So this is the topic of one of the first Triple Helix Expertise Exchange workshop that is organized by VPH Institute, by academia, with participation of the regulators and also industry, to talk about this, to have an open conversation and an exchange of expertise. And this was just the first kickoff. We will now have additional topics and additional sessions following over the next year. We also started, so this was with EMA. We also started doing the same thing with team notified bodies that represents the notified bodies in Europe with standardization bodies like DIN. They're all very much interested in doing this. And together with the Avicenna Alliance, this is really what we're working on to make sure that everywhere where you want to go or everywhere you want to apply your in silico medicine, in silico model in medical therapies, that you will be able to do so. So why specifically is it so good that academics are involved in that? Because we have technical knowledge and we are free of this conflict, perceived conflict of interest that is a problem for industry, because they are most of the sponsors are industry. So when they come and they want to regulate something or they want to suggest regulations for EMA, this is a bit harder to deal with. So academia, we're kind of free from this, this conflict. And that is why we are interesting partners for all parties involved. But that means that we need to know, that we need to do our homework. And as academics, we also need to make sure that we know the regulatory science and that we get involved in the game. And then there's the third point that I wanted to talk about very briefly. It's about how regulatory science can then improve our own academic practice. And one thing was the measurement, the characterization of biological tissues. If you use mechanical properties of biological tissues in your models, you need to have a value, and that value needs to be recognized by the regulator as having been obtained in good conditions. And we noticed that, you know, there is not a good database available. There's a lot of reports in the literature, but there's a lot of variability in the methods. So that's why we designed a community challenge to come up with a consensus protocol to measure certain material properties. And we started simply with mechanical properties, where, as you can see here from the pipeline that I will not discuss in detail, there's many different places where some decision needs to be taken that might have an effect on your final measured mechanical properties. So different test campaigns should be organized for these different aspects. And now, what is a test campaign? Well, we start with a tissue sample that we send to people, groups across the world. They do their measurement. As we had discussed, they send their results. We put them together and try to understand what are the elements causing variability and come up with a standardized protocol. People then get another sample, do their measurements, send it back, and hopefully variability has decreased and we can publish this community consensus protocol. Now, the first campaign is ongoing. We're at the end of phase 1 for the aortic tissues. A lot of people across the world are participating there. And if you want to know more, you can check the C4Bio website for additional information. So this is one way in which this participation and this regulatory aspect is actually improving the way we do science. Another example will be the good simulation practice. You have heard of the good manufacturing practice, the good laboratory practice. Well, if you take all of these regulations, all of these guidelines that are existing and that are becoming increasingly getting increasingly published, well, then we need to somehow put this together into one comprehensive framework that you can follow. That if you want to use a model, if you want to develop a model that might have a chance of making it towards the patient, it would be nice to have a guidance. And this guidance could be the good simulation practice. And we're working with In Silico World, the community of practice, as a grassroots initiative, and with the Avicenna GSP task force to realize this good simulation practice. And what does that mean for academia? Once something like this exists, once a frame like this exists, it can help our own science and make our own science more reliable, more reproducible, and more reusable. And that is only for the better of science. So in a nutshell, what I had covered here is how academia and regulator or the regulatory process can interact, either by going through it themselves, by being involved in the development of regulatory science, or using the results of those developments to improve our own practice. So with that, I think it's very important to understand that if you want to make it from the screen to the patient, that this needs to be a community effort. This is not something that you can do alone. You can develop your model alone, but in order to reach the patient, you need a lot of other people and partners and stakeholders. So really the community is very, very much key in such an effort. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Liesbet. You really stick to the time, so wonderful. And congratulations for this inspiring talk and these take-home messages that I'm sure that we can have a good note of them. Let's continue with Thierry Marchal, who is the Secretary General from the Avicenna Alliance and the ANSYS Global Industry Director for Healthcare and Sports. So Thierry, whenever you are ready, the stage is yours.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Marta. And in fact, this is a very nice way in order to continue with the fantastic things that Lies was describing. There are a lot of things to be done. And as Lies was mentioning it, we cannot do it in isolation. Not the largest organization in the world, whether it is academic or industry can do that, not even the regulator. But that's why it's very important to join forces together. This has been the role of the Avicenna Alliance. So, as briefly mentioned this morning, this alliance is a global group. So with roots in North America, in Europe, in Asia, and soon in Africa, covering pharma, covering software, covering medical device. And what is funny is that this alliance has been created 5 years ago at the request of the European Union. We were amazed by the powers of an INTICO approach, but recognized that they are not knowledgeable for that. So we're asking for a group of people in order to advise them. And of course, this was coming from this VPHi Institute here. So the mission here and the specificity of this Avicenna Alliance is to focus only on this INSICO method. There's several groups who are looking at improving this kind of medical innovation, improving patient safety and so on, but not only on the INSICO approach. What is quite important is that this is not just a few groups. As you can see, we've got several industry, but also the entire VPHi Institute, which is there in order to support this message. You can see from the company that we have some members which are startup members, small company, very large multinational company. On the software side, like Dassault, like ANSYS, Altair, the medical device side, like Metronics, Tracker, and so on, and on the pharma side, like Alexion, like Johnson & Johnson, and or other. But also, we've got some partners which are coming from the regulator, FDA, EMA, and so on, from the European Union, and also from the standard ASME DIN, as mentioned by Lynn. So what are we doing over there? The point is that we need to influence people. Lies was mentioning very clearly that you cannot just develop your model on your side. The impact will be quite limited. So we need to educate the people, and that's quite intimidating for engineers to say, okay, we need to speak in front of the European Parliament, we need to engage with a US senator or US congressman. We need to educate, to brief this kind of US congressman to let them know what's going on. And that's a kind of completely different message to make sure that what we are doing can be understood by these people with a real impact. Look at this kind of publication from the US Congress. People realize that this kind of digital twin that Jérôme was mentioning, this kind of virtual patient can save a lot of money for the industry and a lot of time for the people. And similarly, in Europe, now this kind of computer modeling and simulation, INSICO approach is recognized like something very important in order to move further. That only can be achieved by this kind of a combination and joint collaboration between all these elements. The way we have organized ourselves is clearly to have 50% from the academic people and 50% from the industry. As mentioned by Lies, what is very important from the academic people is the absence of conflict of interest that we are facing from time to time. But what is very important is to understand the hurdle that we are facing. First, we need to get some funding for research, whether it is in academia or in the industry. Second, we need to make sure that the regulators are fully aware of what is important over there and what are the limitations. And third, we have to make sure that this is not just done in Europe, but across the world, in North America, in Europe, in Asia, in China, in Japan, and so on. Otherwise, there is limited interest. But that's why we were creating this working group, and we are proud to have Lies as leading the research and technology working group, Emmanuel Voisin, the policy development working group, and Marcus Reiterer, this kind of international with activity with the point that I was mentioning, and that with numerous different activity and task force that I want to briefly review. So in terms of policy and development working group, The point is to make sure that we are continuously interacting with the regulator on two ways. First, we can tell them what is in silico, we can educate them, we can tell them about what is the vision, what could be achieved by one, like digital twin and others. But second, it's very important that we are learning from them what is important. Often, medicine, pediatric disease are getting very important so that we can come back to the member, whether academic or industry, to let them know that this is something important for the authority. Otherwise, we might be pushing very hard with no impact. We need to be opportunistic over there. And as you can see, we are trying to organize and to structure our people very well in such a way that we have some clear deliverable. Over there, there are different kind of task force. This was mentioning this kind of EMAC collaboration. It's very important to directly engage with the regulator or with the notified body, more on the medical device. That's the first element. If they don't know what we are doing, if they are not aware of in silico approach, that means that we are wasting our time. When we've got that, and learning that there are some major strategies from Europe in order to redefine the pharmaceutical strategy, we need to have a group of people who are dedicated to that. And as you can see, most of the time, we have an industry leader and an industry co-chair and an academic co-chair. Those people will be focusing on this specific activity to learn more what could be done and what are year after year the success that we can have. This was mentioning in good simulation practice. Clearly, that's a massive effort where we need to collect a lot of information. We recently got Dane joining us in the sense that to some extent, between us, we can create a white paper. If we want to impose it, that means that we need to work with the formal authority, first regulator, in order to make sure that this is in line with what they want to do. Second, with the standard organization or any others in such a way, like the harmonization group, in such a way that this is becoming a reality. And well, more recently, as part of this policy development working group, we need to learn to engage with the patient, with the clinician as well. This is one of these recent task force that we've done. We need to educate the global ecosystem about what is in silico. Most of them have no idea what this word means, so that they realize the full power, and therefore they will be advocating for the large-scale adoption of that together with us. Research and Technology Working Group has two major missions, and this is led by Lies here. First, get the funding. Europe is investing a lot of money for automotive, for aeronautics, for aerospace, and so on. Why not for healthcare? To some extent, this is the most important topic for all their citizens. We need to be aware of that. But the second point is that in healthcare, we need to move so fast that we cannot afford to work in parallel. We need to join forces and work together. So bridging the gap between the industry research and the academic research is essential so that we are not doing the same thing. First of key element, making a map of where are the funding. How can we influence that? How can we make sure that in the proposal there are some kind of in silico reference, digital twin reference, and therefore being able to go to take advantage of the funding to grow this kind of approach. And then later on, we can listen to people. When we were meeting at the US Congress, people from the FDA were telling us, okay, but you know, for material property, you need to have the certificate of birth. So Lies was explaining this kind of thing for bio activity, and we realized that there are still a lot of work to be done. So we need to structure that, coming from the academic, coming from the industry, directly engaging with the regulatory people so that we can move over there. Another topic very important, AI. Everybody is talking about AI. Is there any role for in silico? That's why we've got Gordon Johnson from J&J and Jerome. Thank you for hosting this event, in order to make sure that we can position in silico and how in silico can help AI and vice versa. Again, needs for some collaboration for that. And I was talking about the public and patient initiative a little bit earlier. It's very important to talk with the clinician as well. So making sure that they realize the value of in silico and moving forward for that. Last element here is international. If a sponsor, an industrial sponsor, need to do a clinical trial for China and Japan, well, it will do that and use it for Europe and US. So there is no point to have this kind of digital evidence or in silico clinical trial. On the other end, If we can have this kind of approach, which is global across the world, or at least for most of the key elements, that means that we can reduce the number of full clinical trials that we are doing. This kind of reduce, refine, and replace this trial approach. As part of it, there is a very strong reflection where several people are coming together to develop this kind of white paper that we just published last week about this global harmonization task force. We have a fantastic group of worldwide leaders for in situ approach. Let's try to educate people or to put our thought together in such a way that we can say what will be the key element. So to some extent, this is what you can see here. To make sure that we are bringing all the people, whether they're coming from academia, from the industry, engaging with the regulator, and then publishing this kind of position paper, white paper, and other elements in such a way that we can progressively move into this direction. So that's the element, and I'm not here to recruit anyone, but the fact that we really need to join the force, we cannot doing it alone, otherwise it will take longer. We don't have time. We need to change healthcare as soon as possible. Those are this kind of activity that could be done. And the reason why we have created this kind of non-for-profit organization, which is the Avicenna Alliance, to make sure that all the work that Lies was describing and others are doing as well, are leading to big fruit and big impact on the world and changing healthcare. Thank you, Martha.
Many thanks, Thierry. Well, indeed, as you said, many challenges, but also we are working to face them. And also many keywords like collaboration, awareness, and education that we will talk about them further. Next speaker is Rossana Alessandrello, who works as the Value-Based Procurement Director at the Agency for Healthcare Quality and Evaluation of Catalonia, AQuAS. So Rossana, we are looking for listening to you.
Okay, can you hear me? I hope also you can see already my screen. Okay, now put in presentation mode. Okay. So hopefully you are looking at the presentation mode. Okay, so first of all, let me thank the organizers, UPF, VPHi Institute, and specifically Jerome, to inviting me to share my perspective on this so relevant topic today. I know that most of you are coming from a very active, intensive activity from the VPH summer school, and so I would like to talking after Lies and Thierry, I would like to be a bit more provocative than they than they were, and explain now to you what are the expectations. So I would like now to be more put emphasis somehow on the wording expectations from the title of this session of today, and what are the expectations of a potential adopter of such technologies, complex technologies like in silico medicine. And how the community can support a potential adopter to adopt at the end these technologies, and as Thierry was saying, to improve the healthcare provision. So I come from AQuAS, and I'm, as also it was said, I'm the Value-Based Procurement Director. AQuAS is the Agency for Health and Quality Assessment. And really our mission is generating relevant knowledge through the evaluation and analysis of data for decision making, in order to contribute to the improvement of the health of citizens and sustainability of the health system of Catalonia. So now that I have read the mission, maybe some of you can make this simple question: why AQuAS need an area with some expertise in value-based procurement, in innovation procurement, in R&D procurement? What are we doing here? Really, we don't stop to look for opportunities to address the unmet needs of our healthcare system and our health providers through R&D and innovation, through specific individual projects, through community of practice related with public procurement of innovation or pre-commercial procurement, through education programs like IRAs, and through also specific programs funding, co-funded by the RDA funds, where at the end, together with the Department of Health, with the payer for Catalonia, we were able to award 30 million euros in distributing in 18 public procurement innovation procedures in the last years. So why we are doing all of this? Because really we see that most of the unmet needs that come from our system, unfortunately, with the available technology, available products, available solutions, available services, sometimes are not addressed. And in fact, this is exactly how it works also across Europe. Less than 25% of R&D grants results in commercialization, and more of 50% of public procurement do not achieve their goals. So the procure of R&D and the procurement of innovation is the way to ensure that all the healthcare providers, the payers, the technology providers coming from the academia and coming from the companies can really understand what are the real unmet needs we need to address and find a solution together. Usually, if we look at an overall innovation pathway and the tech adoption, a lot of times, a lot of projects, several projects come up with R&D agreements, R&D grants. There are maybe preclinical and clinical investigation with collaboration, maybe with some funds from European Union, or maybe also local grants. We have individual healthcare providers, or maybe more of the healthcare providers that collaborate with academia and industry to ensure that we move on the TRL, on the maturity of the technology, and then when we certify finally this technology. So at the end, the regulators, the EMA, the FDA, the notified bodies will then accept this technology, and then this technology can be sold. But unfortunately, this does not necessarily mean can be adopted. And this is the provocation that I want to make sure that all here in the audience see it. We need to make a step further to make this happen. And the step further is making sure that we have studies that reinforce that this intervention in this innovation, this R&D, the fruit of all of this are effective, are cost effective for the health system. The cost utility can be demonstrated, and the payer can find a model to reimburse to have such a technology solution in health system in a sustainable way, and can cover part clearly of this intervention, of the fact that we introduce this change in the health system. And this could be maybe, for instance, a typical path for a drug, But what happens a medical device, this is almost the same. At the end of the day, the healthcare providers will need to launch a public procurement, and again, to ensure that then the payer reimburse the fact that they are transforming their healthcare provision by the introduction of this new technology, of this new in silico, why not, system. At the end, the reimbursement needs to take place, because if not, the healthcare provider take all the risk by everything by itself, and maybe, unfortunately, cannot be sustainable along the years. Somehow, I want to put emphasis that once we have built together health technology all together, academy, healthcare providers, healthcare professionals, and industry, and we are looking at safety, efficacy, quality, and we achieve the market authorization, we are not yet done. We have just a license to sell this technology, but to ensure that then this technology, the transformation health system, can be reimbursed, can be covered by the payer, we need to go to an HTA model. That can be done in parallel together with the certification, with this regulatory dialogue that we are having with EMA and we are having with FDA. And this could speed up at the end the adoption of such technology through early dialogues, through forward committed procurement, pre-commercial procurement, innovation partnership, innovation public procurement. So let's ensure that in this triangle, that we are saying, industry, academy, healthcare professional, health providers, and regulatory. So now it's square. We have a pentagon, and we have also the vision of the adopter, the payer, and the healthcare system. And to speed up, as also Thierry was pushing, such adoption to improve in a sustainable way, and in a reliable way, the adoption of such technology. Thank you.
Many thanks, Rossana. Well, we take note of your controversial comment, just to further explore it in the round table. I don't know if our next speaker is here. Jose Manuel, are you here?
Yes, good afternoon, okay. Marta.
Good afternoon. So it's your time. If you want to share your screen, please. We are waiting for you.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't introduce you. Jose Manuel Santa Barbara is the head of research and development projects department at the ANSYS center. So yeah, Jose Manuel, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Marta, and thank you, Jerome, and the QUAES Foundation for give us this opportunity to present us and to show us our point of view. I would like to present my company because I think it's useful to you in order to understand our point of view, our opinion about this topic, this very interesting topic. Yes, Astides Medical Group is a group formed by several companies in the field of genetics, diagnostic imaging, and nuclear medicine, as well as is a leader in oncology radiation in Spain. The Astides Group's human resources comprise over 700 professionals. And you can see on the screen the principal milestones from the birth of the company in 1963 until, for example, the birth of the first genomic company in 1998. The main the special things that has occurred at the company through the years, and until the foundation of the Fundación QUAES, that is our social drive. I will be faster in the presentations part because I'm the last from the last presentation at the VPH, so I think is the most interesting is our point of view. But in order to understand our point of view, we are a medical group. We are a company formed by doctors. We work in the field of genetics. We work in the field of diagnostic imaging. We work in the field of the nuclear medicine. We work in the field of the radiation oncology. Obviously, I'm the head of the R&D department, so we perform R&D projects, always or on the most of occasions in collaboration with the academia of the universities or technological centers. And we recently started in the field of biomedical clinics and hospitals. And the last is the social drive, as is our foundation, that is the QUAES Foundation, that it is a non-profit dedicated to disseminating medical and scientific advances among patients Our mission is to share knowledge in a rigorous and accessible way in order to become a meeting point between society and the scientific, medical, and academic fields. All this carried out in collaboration with over more than 80 patient associations. These slides, I will be very fast. We have a genetic part. This is formed by the company Sistemas Genómicos. That is the first major Spanish firm to specialize in genetic sequencing, with almost two decades in experience in the field of molecular biology and genetics, with a specialization in techniques aimed at the fields of healthcare, food, agriculture, and research. In the field of medical imaging, we have very strong number of equipment. We have the latest technology, and in the similar and the nuclear medicine area, that we have the first PET MRI in Spain, and we have among the first diagnosis treatments in Spain. So we have to be slower in the radiation oncology area, because I think it was the first area in our company that kept in touch with the in silico medicine. In ANSYS, the pioneer department, as I said, in the use of in silico medicine was the radiotherapy department, through the new tools for planning radiotherapy treatments. Before starting radiotherapy treatment, the radiotherapy team carefully plans the treatment in a process called radiation simulation. And it is in this simulation that in silico medicine is used, since in treatment planning, it simulates the effect of some of the tissues that we wish to irradiate with curative effects, avoiding irradiating the surrounding tissues, applying properties to medical images, so that once the treatment is applied to the patient, it has previously been rehearsed in its digital twin. The main kind of treatments that are using the in silico technologies are the IGRT, the image-guided radiation therapy and structural light radiation therapy, in which we will perform all radiotherapy treatments, both curative and palliative, with guided imaging, with improved precision and accuracy, and allows greater control of the disease. Another is the respiratory gating, controlling an advanced technique capable of synchronizing the administration of radiotherapy with the patient's breathing to destroy cancer cells with an effect in healthy tissue. Its application is key in radiotherapy of the left breast to protect the heart, as well as in other types of cancer, such as lung and liver cancer. The third treatment is intensity modulated radiation therapy, an advanced treatment modality that manages to administer higher and more effective doses of radiotherapy to tumors, minimizing doses to healthy tissue close to the tumor, and therefore leading to fewer side effects. And the last is the stereotactic body radiation therapy, and that it consists of the administration of high doses of radiation therapy per fraction to the tumor tissue, with high precision and verification before each session, preserving healthy tissues and preventing the appearance of sequelae and complications, especially recommended for tumors that are difficult to reach, located near vital organs and key anatomical regions. We can see some samplers, for example, from breast radiotherapy treatment plan, where the objective is through in silico technologies, simulate the effect of the radiation in a color map, and marking the vital organs that has to be avoided to be radiated, like in this case, the heart. Another sample, for example, is a lung cancer treatment that is planned with a color map that you can see on the screen. Another sample, for example, is the 3D images of the the planning of the treatment of the same treatment for a lung cancer, defining the trajectories of the irradiation from the linear accelerator, and taking in account the vital organs that has to be avoided to be irradiated. And the last, for example, is a prostate cancer irradiation. Is very similar. The spirit of the treatment is similar. Create a color map very hot in the third cancer area, and make preventing the damage of structures that are very near. This is an example. And if we force the definition of in silico medicine, we can find additional samples, such as the use of a part as called as bolus, manufactured by 3D printing to facilitate the treatment planning. With this technique, we can facilitate the best treatment for patients with previous surgeries, which have left cavities or deformation in its anatomy. With these pieces, we complete or adapt this anatomy with materials with the same properties as the same body in radiological terms always. The perspective from Aspires about the silico medicine is double or twofold. On the one hand, Aspires has potentially all medical centers and hospitals is a potential provider for in silico medicine technologies or for in silico medicine developers. And this role is very important, and especially with the new algorithms and tools based on artificial intelligence, since on many occasions, especially from an imaging perspective, we are a provider of data lakes. And here we could open a roundtable, a part of this, only with this term for the following reasons. From our point of view, the regulatory system is not sufficient nowadays, and we found every lagoons, every empty areas that can be fulfilled. For example, I have very questions. Does the full anonymization of the data from the patients enough to allow the unrestricted use of databases? What is about the reuse or reutilization of the databases? Has the patient to know the way his images will be used when the patient lets the informed consent? How offer traceability to regulatory agencies by developers about the data collection process for the modeling phase in silico medicine? Have the regulatory agencies asked for this kind of aspects in the approval process for a medical device, for example, for a software? And in the other hand, Alcires has also developed tools on medical devices focusing on helping diagnosis, including prognosis, and in this area where the use of silico research is increasing with satisfactory results, but never without difficulties, which should also be highlighted. Now I will show you some samples of developments in the field of in silico medicine. And the first example is densigras. With densigras, we have covered the entire cycle of innovation, starting with the definition of the problem, the ideation of the solution, and its validation to bring into the routine clinical practice. The main objective of this project has been the development of an application that allows the use of densitometry, DEXA, for the estimation of intra-abdominal fat, visceral fat, and the subsequent creation of fat mass distribution indexes, identifying diagnostic thresholds which can be applied as a predictive instrument for a cardiovascular risk in metabolic syndrome. The main objective of this project is focused on a development of a novel visceral fat measuring tool through the three-dimensional recognition of fat deposits in the abdomen a factor related to diseases such as coronary heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, etc. We were looking for a simple, accessible, a cheap, and low-risk tool to be able to propose it as metabolic risk screening tool. And one of the main applications that we are currently using is children with pre-obesity. In this development, thanks to the use of in silico medicine, we achieved the following advantage, among many others. We achieve a much faster preclinical validation process, and without the need for tests on animals. We were able to obtain models of digital twins to elaborate the fat distribution models based on age, sex, and race, and obtain normality or normal values, key aspect in this tool. The development has achieved the ECA marking, both for the fat measuring tool and the tool for identifying pathological and high-risk values. The shadow in this kind of projects that we plan that 300 subjects database will be enough in the beginning, and finally at the final of the process we found necessary more than 2,000 subjects database. You can see in the images how the tool is running, how we analyze the visceral fat, what we measure with using a technique very cheap that is called DEXA. And we have developed new interfaces in order to measure and calculate the risk.
Jose Manuel, I'm sorry, but we are running out of time.
Yeah, and I'm closing with another example. For example, Great. Is the COVID tools project. In this occasion, I'm going to talk about the tool that we have developed for the diagnosis and prognosis of COVID-19 disease, whose name is COVID Tools. The development has taken place in our medical clinics, which, like the rest of the hospitals, have been and are in the front line against this virus. As you well know, the current pandemic has been one of the worst things in humanity and in the recent times, but it has also served to be able to complete, at least in our point of view, one of the greatest efforts in collaborative clinical research, based on which COVID tools has emerged. We will show the figures, and you show the blocks that the database is composed by, and you can find the main goal for this project in order to get a structured database in order to serve to developers, to in silico developers, to get the information in a structured way in order to get the most powerful tools in order to diagnosis and prognosis of the COVID-19 pneumonia. The result you can find that the developers could develop with our data tools that can quantify the lesions, estimate the time progression from the pneumonia in COVID-19 from the initial to the very severe cases. And there is a lot of many projects that is supported by the in silico technologies. And my last conclusions from this talk that we consider that in silico medicine is present, not only future, but in the future is very important for these technologies. That in the clinical trials world is getting massive. There are nowadays, from our point of view, some regulatory doubts that need to be solved. And it's always a complementary technique, so it's always a complementary technology, not a substitute technology from the actual technologies in medicine. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Don't worry, we start late, so we are just, well, we will try to keep to the program. Thank you for everything, for your talks, which have addressed a very interesting and necessary topics for the advancement of in silico medicine. Just a brief discussion to warm up the second part. So to our all four panelists, I would like to ask you a question. Can you just turn on your cameras, please? Thank you. Okay, so the question is very briefly in one sentence. How do you think in silico medicine will shape the future of research? That maybe can be answered by Liesbet, healthcare industry, Thierry, and finally clinical practice, Rossana and Jose Manuel.
Okay, so maybe I can kick it off with the research. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I think in silico medicine or in silico tools actually provide a very complementary tool in our toolkit that we can use to answer any kind of question in healthcare research, but in any type of research, providing an integrative, a more holistic picture of certain things and helping us understand what are the results that we obtain with other technologies. And so for me, it's not a replacement, but it's a complementary tool to get quicker and more thoroughly to the answers that we are looking for.
Okay, Thierry, what about healthcare industry?
Industry, the in silico method, it will be pervasive and it will completely revolutionize healthcare as much as internet has changed communication. So that I'm convinced that in 20 years from now, we would be wondering how we were doing before this kind of in silico approach.
Rossana, what do you think about shaping the future of clinical practice?
Well, this is, I fully agree with the perspective that were given by Liese and Thierry, but specifically by Liese when she says it's not a replacement, is going to be really supportive tools. Thank you to this kind of technology. Maybe we can, for instance, faster or maybe achieve, why not, to conclude the clinical trials of drugs right now are not arriving to the market because we have uncertainty in the study, because we don't have, maybe let's think about orphan drugs, let's think about pediatrics, drugs for pediatrics. So all of where we have difficulties in the process to release the product, really in silico technology could be a major support to make this happen, and to give answer to the question that to the unmet needs. Really, if not, it's going to be hard to have to make this question. And then also, why not also all this well, all of these simulation that are needed at all level for instance, in delivering a new surgery, a new treatment plan, and all verification of all the hypotheses that the clinical practice and the clinical protocols right now, somehow lead you to do, and still you could use this kind of technology to support to take a real clinical decision with this tool. So to me, this is fascinating, and it could be really great to have all this technology we were talking today already in place in our health system.
For sure. What do you think, Jose Manuel? Do you agree with your colleagues?
Yes, I agree. I fully agree with all of them. We are very positive about the future of this in silico medicine. I'm sure that the things that nowadays afraid us a little bit, like the regulation. I have seen with the presentation of Thierry Marchal that is ongoing. This is a topic that is ongoing. So I'm very positive. I'm very about the future.
Sure. Yeah, Thierry just talk about impressive achievements and challenges that for sure we will talk about it. Okay, so well, let's welcome the other experts that will join us in this roundtable. They are Dr. Jordi Martínez Roldán, who is the Head of Innovation and Digital Transformation here at Hospital del Mar in Barcelona. Dr. Guillermo Mermet, who is a radiologist at the Tires group medic. Juan Riese, who is the Scientific and Technical Advisor at the Health Institute Carlos III, and also the National Contact Point for the Health Program Horizon Europe for the Innovative Medicines Initiative. And finally, Javier San Martin, who represents the think tank People Health Living Lab. And he's also a scientific communicator for patient empowerment in health. So, well, many thanks to all of you for being here today with us. And as a welcome, the first question I would like to ask you goes to Dr. Martinez Roldan and Dr. Guillermo Mermet. So this is, what do you expect, continuing with the question that I asked before to the panelists, what do you expect in silico medicine will bring to in the coming years to hospitals and clinical practice?
Hello. Thank you for all the exhibitors, the organizer, and the audience. I think the prediction models now for this analysis imaging must be rapidly being developed to support medical decisions. It's important for us and for making an accuracy diagnostic. That's I expect for it.
So good afternoon, and I agree. I absolutely agree. As I don't know if the silicon models or the silicon medicine bring us, or I expect that these things. First is prediction for the and modeling and simulation. This is important for us, not only in radiology or something like that, but also in Rossana said in processes. If I want to change in my hospital some procedure or process, I can simulate in silico and check the results, and after that I can change in the real life. And I would like to put on the table one barrier from my point of view. One is that if we want to do in silico medicine, we need data, we need a truth data, we need to be able to collect this data and process the data. And in our projects, we have problem to collect data with good quality to do clinical decision support system, algorithms, etc.
Yeah, actually, this will be my third question about the patient. No, don't worry. It's very, very interesting that you just put in the table. But before going to this part of data, I will talk to Javier, because I would like to know what patients think about in silico medicine. And as Jordi said, the expectations. So what do you think after listening to our speakers? What are your expectations and your colleagues? Javier, please.
So for us, this technology looks really promising, of course. Everything they've been saying sounds fantastic. Being able to get more accurate and better diagnostics when you go to the doctor is great, it's perfect. But we would also like it so it makes this system more transparent. So you don't only go to the clinic and then the doctor tells you, so you have this condition and then you have to take this pill. But we also have the option to know how did that develop and what we can do to live with it, or what we can do to palliate the symptoms rather than just taking the pill. And also if they could provide us with some indicators. So let's say, for example, for someone that's affected by diabetes, like what indicators they can use in their daily life to check how the disease is developing, because it can be sometimes hard for yourself to just see it. But if you actually have the indicators, then it's easier for you to realize if you're progressing on the disease, or if you're actually going to the worst end.
Okay, I think that you are asking also for some kind of education and dialogue between patients and practitioners. That this was something that Thierry highlighted in his talk about this consensus and awareness. So, well, as Jordi said, in silico medicine works with patient data. And we should bear in mind how to take this data and how to estimate this data, and also how to protect, because here we have some ethical issues. And I think that also Jose Manuel talked about some ethics briefly in his talk. So it will be very interesting to briefly hear the thoughts about it. In Rossana or Juan, as regulators, how do you see it? How we can protect this process? How we get the data of the patients in a transparent way? And of course, solutions, awareness, challenges?
Should I start or?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to take part in this round table. So it's a very important question. Well, I was fascinated about the presentations we had the opportunity to see right now. So data is becoming a really strategic issue. So when I was some years ago in Brussels in a meeting in the Innovative Medicines Initiative, I was shocked because I heard in a talk that a specialist said that medicine is becoming data science. So this is really a revolution what we are facing right now. So but data, for sure, they are not only useful to make progress in medicine. Data is very important, but they could also be dangerous if not used adequately. So the consequence of this is that we have to put on place some regulation, and this is why we have here the General Data Protection Regulation. So this is okay, this is fine, but it's also a big hurdle for developing science and technology. So I have to say it's very clear. So it's hard because when I was younger and I was in the research, it was very easy to take, for example, samples from tumors from people or umbilical cords and so on. You don't need only to go to the clinical pathology and take the tumor samples, and that's all. And to take the registries, make a copy, a photocopy, and that was all. So it is quite unbelievable today, but it's not. So I am afraid by the most papers I wrote that are not legal right now. So, well, okay, when we compare then the limitations of general data protection regulation, which is really protection, with the need for opening science put by the Commission under fair conditions, it is findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. We have a big contradiction there. So how to overcome this or circumvent this contradiction? Well, I think you are in the best way to provide solutions via using in silico technologies by modeling, simulating, using synthetic data. So you could make everything you can imagine without having the risk to identify who is behind some data. So this is, I think, a really a big impact in the future, and we hope that we can move forward very fast in this sense in order to not to stop, or not really stop, but not to move slower on these aspects in medicine, in medical research. So over.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised about what you have seen, what you have said about the past, how to get the data and the difference between the present. So I think that Rossana has also to add, and maybe later Jose Manuel and Jordi, I think that you were doing like, yeah, I want to add something.
Okay, thank you, Juan, because I agree completely with you that things changed, and it's true that nowadays medicine is going towards more and more to data-driven approach. And in fact, also here in Catalonia, in AQuAS, now we have the PADRIS, now the data analytics program. So this is really is somehow where the science now is going to be based on. But also it's true that not only we have GDPRs, but we have also local directives. And this is and maybe each country, or each in this case Catalonia, maybe have a stricter way to work in comparison with the GDPR. So, and this local aspects also needs to be taken into account. And so it's difficult. It's really there are. I know that I'm aware that there are some projects, some guidelines, guidance on how to not only anonymize, but also maybe render the data in a way that somehow you are synthesizing the data. And because really making the data anonymization is not really sometimes so simple. We believe it is simple, but it's not, especially before there was a speaker talking about images. Wow, an image of the skull is not anonymized at all. You cannot anonymize it. So there are a lot of aspects that really need to be taken into account, and it's not easy. I know that is one of the major difficulties we have, and maybe this program somehow of how to ensure that the patient is always, because also there are other initiatives, no? That the patients are always warned if their data are maybe used in a project beyond the project, the first project they gave the approval for, no? The research project they gave the approval for. So these kind of initiatives are also good. So right now I don't have a real answer, but I know that there are different initiatives like rendering the data, making the data, synthesizing the data, or making always the patient give approval to further consent, no? To consent again for the next research project, that are always good practice right now. And I cannot say anything more, unfortunately. I don't have a real answer.
Well, no, I think it's quite impressive what you say. I mean, we are not looking for the perfect solution. We are just working toward them. So, Jose Manuel, maybe you want to add something?
I can add that this situation that you are describing is the reason, I think is the main reason, because you can find nowadays a higher and higher number of engineers and data scientists working with physicians inside the hospital, not only in the industry. That you can find at the same hospital engineers working with cardiologists, with neurologists, data managers in every department, because the data is very important to be managed in a proper way, and the technology is now inside the hospital, and physicians can do anything, can do all things. They need help. They need living tools like engineers with them. I think is that the reason that you can find more of this kind of professionals in hospitals.
Mm-hmm. Jordi, something to agree or to add?
No, it's I fully agree, but I would like to put one more, is not only for the legal aspect, but also for the standardization of the standards of the data, because the data is only in the hospital or primary care center, is in other clouds outside the hospital, in different medical devices, and we have serious problems to collect the data in a correct way with a specific standards, with a global standards. It's a problem. If we want to call it if we want to introduce the personalized medicine, we need to collect data from different sources out of the hospital, and we have problem to collect the data, not for the legal aspect, not only, but also for the standardization of this data.
Yeah, well, I think that this goes in accordance with what Liesbet has said about the good practices and standardization, and that we can compare between laboratories. So, well, and talking about digital data, let's talk about our digital twin. And we would like interest to know how close we are to have our digital twin. I think that, well, many of you can answer this question, so just raise your hand and...
No, I don't know if we are working. I don't know if it's a digital twin or not. We have data from our building. We have the digital twin of our building, because in our we were constructing in a BIM, BIM is building information management, and we have this digital twin of the, and we want for the in the future work with the sensors, etc. But and we are medical record. We are working hard in how we can have the minor digital twin with standardized data to share this data to do physical project. But we are in the beginning. It's not a real digital twin. But I think it's the future. We need hospitals need a digital twin to move forward to introduce the different aspects.
Mm-hmm. Liesbet.
Yeah, I would like to maybe add a clarification to that word digital twin, and I missed a little part of Jerome's presentation due to connection issues. So if he already explained that, please stop me. But digital twin, as it is explained in Industry 4.0, really has this real-time connection between the virtual and the physical twin. But the way it is used also by the European Commission and by the community, digital twin for personalized healthcare or digital twin in healthcare, we're actually using it as a kind of synonym for a computer model which has some personalized traits, not necessarily a direct link, a real-time link to some sensor readouts of patient data. So in that sense, I think for a number of cases, we're really close. When you look at clinical decision support systems, where a personalized model of a patient is actively being used. Think about heart surgery for infant children in the Great Ormond Street Hospital. They routinely use digital twins of a part of their patient. So it really depends on the question you have and the complexity. If you want to go towards digital twins for degenerative diseases and then drug treatments, well, that's way further down the line, because there is so much uncertainty on a number of things and so much things unknown that it's really hard to build those twins.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's important, that clarification, because sometimes it seems that our digital twin is our real digital twin. So we have a copy of us in a PC. So it's important clarification. Thank you, Liesbet. Jose Manuel, I think that you were raising your hand.
Sorry. No, I think about the digital twin is when the more specific application is easier to get the digital twin. If the scope of this digital twin definition is higher, the thing is more complicated. So for very specific conditions, for very specific cases, I think the digital twins are very near. That for all kind of cases, I think more complex cases, we are a bit far.
Okay, very interesting. Thierry?
Yeah, well, there are indeed different levels. When I was talking with a group like Philips, Medtronic, and others, when we are talking about a digital twin down to your DNA level, we are looking at something like 25, 30 years for now. Still a lot of work to be done. If we are looking at a kind of digital twin of your heart, I mean, a computer model directly connected with the pacemaker in your heart and a digital model which is exactly your own heart, I think that we might be looking at something like 10 years, and British Heart Foundation is funding different kind of project along this line in such a way that we might be able to predict a heart failure that could happen in the next few days, and therefore take preventive action. If you're talking about a kind of digital twin, which is not continuously connected, but coming from your body. And let me take the example of the hospital of Saint-Etienne, Saint-Etienne. They are already using today, and since 2019, some digital twin of patient-specific area. So they are scanning the patient, they are the model, the flow, and they can predict what will be the growth of aneurysm, aortic aneurysm. So that's our reality today. And there will be more for optical activity and so on. So it really depends on that. One of the key elements is that even if we need to take 30 years for what Biomet is developing, that means that every year we can exploit more from the digital twin, and we must do that. We cannot afford to wait for 30 years to get this kind of full digital twin.
Yeah, very, very interesting point, Thierry. Thank you. Okay, we have a question from the audience. So this says, what does the panel feel about the role of open source software in silico medicine? He's in particular interested in terms of reproducibility and verifiability. So any questions, any comment about this? Liesbet? Your microphone is off, Liesbet.
Yeah, now it's okay. I think, yeah, it used to be the case that for open source software, it was much harder to do part of the verification, because verification, if you use commercial software, it's the software company that can help you with that. Although we are now seeing more and more also in certain types of open source software, this whole process of verification being done, and the awareness of what VMV and what regulatory requirements are is increasing. And so that can be built in from the beginning in the software. The only issue then, of course, is if you're putting all your eggs in the basket of something that might disappear at some point, whereas commercial software has maybe a bit longer lifetime. But that's a choice. It also depends if you have developed the software. Well, then that's different again. But I think the difference, by having the standards and by having the VMV out and the regulatory science awareness increasing, it is also possible to use open source software.
Okay. Rossana?
Really, I agree somehow with Liesbet. The real issue, if you want to then have a certification, if you want to use it because it's a medical device, and sometimes with the open software, you are using you somehow inheriting parts of codes that are difficult, no, to put in the flow that can be then certified for the medical device. If the VMV work from public administration perspective, at the end is always the fact that this technology then is being not only it has its own certification, so can be used in the public system because it's certified, but also is being updated, so that is not something that it was like a demo and disappears. This is something that we don't care somehow. Demos, it needs to be somehow exploited, but exploited, I'm not saying, I don't want to use this word thinking commercial exploiting, that there is someone that is taking care, that is maintained, that we are not losing them. So if we build on top of it, we are not introducing new bugs. And clearly, if there is a sponsor, it's easier that all of this is not getting lost. But a model of open source, we don't have any problem with this. It's just to ensure that is maintained correctly towards the certification of the medical device and everything, and after also.
I see. So you need some guarantee that this data will be well available in the future and treated standardized.
It's treated in a way that we are not introducing something that breaks it. And if it is broken, then it's not any longer something that we can use it, because you cannot trust, no?
Exactly.
So there is always a post-certification on all the medical device, no? There is always a post-certification register that you're taking care that everything works correctly always. So who owns this? That's it's just this is the aspect.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm talking about safety. We have another question from our audience that it's, do you find interesting that in silico medicine programs should be incorporated into the ISO type quality program Joint Commission standards? I think that Rossana agrees because she's nodding.
They are already, there are parts of ISO standards that pertain to parts of models. So, and it's also the goal of the GSP to have a more comprehensive framework. It's a goal of collaborating within to maybe support standards. There is the ICH that already also has multiple standards where modeling is in. So it is part of that. We just want to make it a bit more comprehensive. Now it is really scattered, and it's an approach to get somewhere with modeling to get it started. But at some point it would be nice for it to come together and have the in silico be the starting point rather than a particular pathology or a particular application.
And along this line, oh, sorry, I didn't want to.
No, Thierry.
That's a key point. There is some value in making sure that this is fully recognized. And when I'm talking about general purpose software, and I'm coming from a software company, so I can be based over there, these software are already used for the aeronautic industry, automotive industry, and so on. And for that, they need to be extremely qualified. We've got all the ISO certification that we have to go through, not for the software, but for each version of the software that we release. So that's also this kind of cost which is coming to that, and coming back to what Rossana was saying, we need to make sure that this is flexible, it will not break, and all these elements. So that's why there is this kind of cost, and there is this kind of commercial software, because there is no free lunch. Having said that, I fully value this kind of open source software in order to test different kind of approach, to see which kind of model could work, which kind of model are the most promising, so that later on we can introduce them into this kind of commercially available software, and having more pressure on this kind of commercial software in order to make sure that this kind of healthcare and in silico healthcare is becoming quite affordable.
Okay, many thanks. So we are talking about the stakeholders, and I think that we have patients and clinicians a bit apart today. So I would like to come back to Jordi and Guillermo and ask them, why do clinicians and patients need in silico medicine? What do you think about it?
Well, I think it's for us it's necessary to find ways to help doctors and their fight against the diseases. It plays a vital role in the detection and management of these patients. In my area, automated images analysis with artificial intelligence techniques has the potential to optimize the role of the CT in the assessment of COVID-19, for example, in the past year and now, by allowing accurate and fast diagnosis infections in a large number of patients, and has the potential to support clinical decisions making and improve workflow efficiency.
Okay, yeah, sure. Jordi? Something to add?
Well, it's the same. It's the same things, and I think we need decision support systems, clinical, non-clinical decision support systems, related to change processes, decisions. We need to understand, predict, and control more the diseases, and look. We need to looking for some relationships between among different diseases that we are not able to identify now. So it's a huge field that they need a lot. We need in the clinical perspective, in the clinical management perspective, in the patient perspective. I am learning a lot today. Yes.
Yes, but I think it's very important. What do you have to say that you need it a lot? So I think that we are raising expectations, and that's positive, very positive. So Javier, I'm going to move to you. Well, because I also want to to know what do you think about it, and also if you patients are really conscious of the possibilities that in silico medicine can bring to you.
I think there still there's still some work to be done, as I think that's the main point that I'm getting from here. Also, in the communication aspect, I think it's hard to communicate these topics for the general audience, because it's sometimes hard to also understand the processes that are involved and all the regulations and everything like that. I mean, it's easy for for us to disconnect from everything like this. So activities like this one, I think, are great to actually inform people and increase awareness, as you've mentioned before. But I think it's also important for doctors to communicate with their patients when they are in the clinic, and to tell them the possibilities that these technologies have for them specifically, and how these technology can affect their lives, or how can affect treatment and diagnosis for them. Because it's a lot more personal when you're speaking only to one person and they can relay the information way better than if you're just attending to a conference or something like that. I do have a question though relating to what we were talking about. Can I ask?
Sure.
Yeah, will patients be able to access the data that is used for these in silico approaches and share them with other third parties, or does it belong to just the one institution and they are not allowed to like share them with other institutions or something like that? So if, for example, I go to my dietitian, can I give them access to this information that's gathered in a given hospital?
Who has the answer?
I can say that this should be the way, because the data are yours. Maybe sometimes, unfortunately, the healthcare providers are not able yet to provide you with the access to this data. For instance, here in Catalonia now we have the La Meva Salut, that is this access to the personal health record, that you have access, for instance, to your diagnosis, your blood test results, but maybe you don't have access to data that for you patients are complex to understand. Because also that's the reality. You don't know, no? If you have access to some data, you don't know really what this data means. And so you need to have a healthcare professional to provide you, with what this data means to you. Because that I have a cholesterol high, to me maybe means something, but maybe to you means something else, because you have a different healthcare status. So this is the key, that unfortunately sometimes patients are not able to have given with this access, with this data, because there is an interpretation that needs to happen when you have access, when you have a visit with your the professional health profession that is taking care of you. By the way, yes, you should, and this is something that, again, I was mentioning, there are some initiatives, but it's not, are more research and development projects, are more something that is not yet across Europe. Maybe there are these initiatives that you could decide what kind of data can be shared with the other healthcare professionals, or with the clinical trials, because maybe you should opt in, since unfortunately maybe you have this healthcare status that at the end maybe any treatment right now is not offering you very good results. Maybe opting in a clinical trial could be good. So maybe through the health professionals you could opt in and sharing the data that, these kind of things you should own. But still, you as a patient, maybe you're not able to interpret your data. That's the important thing. I think all of us, we need to understand.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't think most of us are qualified to actually analyze the data that's in those tests. I was thinking more of sharing the data with other institutions, like you've mentioned.
Well, but I think that we can educate patients, and I think that in silico medicine could help us in doing so. What do you think about how we can raise awareness about in silico medicine among patients and regulators, as Thierry has said in his talk? Thierry and
ladies first.
Okay.
You're first.
I would say that it's probably, or what we're looking at is a two-pronged approach. I mean, there's one local, where you go to local patient organizations and you explain them how, for them, one particular type of in silico modeling could actually help with very concrete cases, and you can build from those. Then you can really put a face on in silico medicine, and build it up from there. If you have a number of these examples, it makes it more tangible for the audience at large. The other way around is working with groups like the European Patient Organization and this UPAT Academy that they have, where you can build training for patients and to teach about in silico medicine. So that's the top-down approach.
Thierry?
On my end, regarding what Liz was saying, we need to have some concrete example. And I remember a few years ago, my father-in-law need to have some kind of stent implant, and he was very scared by that. And I was showing him a kind of simulation that we were doing to say, okay, what is a stent? How do we insert and deploy that? And he said, okay, that's easy. Why are they charging me so much for this kind of thing? Having something very concrete so that we can educate people. And for that, COVID was a good element. We were using COVID and we were able to use in silico approach in order to address some of these questions, especially this kind of social distance, in such a way that it can be understood by everybody. Coming back to what Javier was saying, yes, it could be difficult to understand, but this is up to us, the in silico expert, to find out how we can explain that to the patient, to the clinician, and not to try to expect that the patient will be able to understand this kind of approach. AI could help quite a lot for this kind of thing. So having some concrete example, we are talking, Jerome was talking about chronic disease. How can we help people to suffer less from chronic disease because this is becoming important? All that will get the attention, the immediate attention of all the regulator, all the patient, and we'll be pushing in silico, just like we've seen a clear push after this kind of COVID because we are showing some value.
Absolutely agree with you. Well, I think that if anyone has any other question, we can talk about it. But I think that because we are running late and we start late, because it's Friday afternoon, so I think that we are all tired. Maybe if you agree, we can just let this. Oh, sorry. I think that we have another question. Okay. Well, it's a comment from the audience, and it states that the use of in silico models by patients and general population in health has started with the smartphones and watches, and the problem is that the quality and reliability is poor. So, as we were saying later before, sorry, that there's no so much control with this data. I think that Rossana has pointed to it, and well. Javier, do you have any other question? I'm sorry, Juan, I think that you want to add something.
Yes, yes, I make a short comment because it was interesting comment about the mobile phones and the applications regarding health. The Commission has proposed for this first call on cluster health CSAs, coordination support action, in order to put some order in this field or applications for health, because this is absolutely uncontrolled. So I think it's a good initiative, and I wish to take this opportunity also to say how the Commission is engaged in supporting digital medicine and in silico medicine. There are some complications about terms, about definition, as we learned this morning when Jerome said, well, in silico medicine is almost always connected with artificial intelligence. But anyway, the Commission is supporting artificial intelligence as an horizontal issue for all topics in the cluster health. But moreover, there is a new program that will be launched in this year, maybe in autumn or maybe at the end of the year. It's called the Digital Europe program, which has 5 different fields. We don't know how will be funded, how will be the funding schemes, but they are quite interesting for you. There are big opportunities because the budget will be around 7.7 billion euros to be spent until 2027. And the 5 fields or priorities proposed are supercomputing, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, advanced digital skills. And this is related with education of professionals, of society, of people, in order to make the best use of these technologies. And also the fifth priority will be the digital technologies across the economy and society. Well, I want to underline this, there will be funding there, and so please be excellent and go for the money, but also for the scientific and technical importance of the impact of all what you are doing. It's quite interesting. I like it.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say about the funding, because I think that every technology needs some fund to really move on. So very interesting point to say that. Okay, so well, I think that there are some questions. Well, some people are asking for talking to panelists offline to further discuss the open source data. I think that he or she is not agree, so I will send you the questions later on. And well, many thanks to the audience, to the panelists, to the roundtable, to be here and to share these incredible insights on the future and challenges of the technology that I'm sure that we will further meet another time. I don't know if Anita and Jerome want to say something just as a closing remark.
Bueno, no haremos el colofón, cerraremos la sesión. So thank you very much, Marta, for sharing this great, I was listening to the Spanish translation. I need to switch it off. So thank you very much, Marta, then for this great sharing of this session and management of the discussion. Thank you so much for all the people present in this roundtable, and then for sharing your fantastic expertise and thoughts about these very multifaceted questions around in silico medicine and then the future of our medicine. And I think it has been really great. So I think that now it's just time to close this event, and at the same time to close also the VPH summer school. So I would like to share my screen, because there are specific. I would like to share with you then some numbers, so that you see what has been exactly this event. No. So first I would like to send the 19 speakers that we had, taking into account people participating in the keynote lectures, workshops, and roundtable. We had additionally 3 roundtable members that were not speakers and did really a great job in this debate. So thank you so much for that. We had 13 chairwomen and chairmen who also participated. Of course, we had Marta, so our journalist who wonderfully then covered and managed this roundtable. I must mention also the fantastic work of Madeleine, who was making the simultaneous translation of this roundtable in English, in Spanish, sorry, I'm tired too. Actually, I was following then the Spanish version, and I was really impressed. So thank you so much, Madeleine, for that. I would like to thank the 15 hands-on instructors that have worked tirelessly during the whole week. Of course, this wouldn't have been possible without the staff members. So we had at the campus level, at the department level, at the economy level. So we also have administrative staff members providing support during all the preparation of the VPH summer school. We had our IT technician who made sure that software would be available, which was not actually that easy on a secure network, such as one of the university. I would like also to thank heartfully the collaborators from the Foundation QUAES, who co-organized in this roundtable. And of course, I would like then to thank the more than 100 participants in total that connected during these 5 days. So there is no event without participation. So they're basically then fully part of, I think, the success this VPH summer school, and then the success of this last event. And last but not least, I really would like to thank Anita Toncheva, who did a fantastic work already weeks before the event. And during the event, who has always been in the background, making sure that the communication was smooth among everyone, making sure that all the systems were working on time. So thank you. So I just propose then to have a virtual clap for all these persons, and thank you very much. Okay. So, and of course, I would like then to thank our main collaborators, both in the organization and in the financial support of this VPH Summer School. So the European Project is for All, the VPH Institute, and the QUAES Foundation. So having said that, I wish you all then a nice evening, a very nice weekend. I think everyone now deserves a good break. and we hope then to see you next week for the 6th VPH Summer School that should be held more or less at the same timing, first week of June or last week of May. So thank you very much, everyone, and a nice evening and nice weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.